In the long term, we will not only need to mitigate risk, we will also need to arrest the processes which create risk in the first place. I'm Professor Parthasarathy from the Department of Humanities and Social Sciences at IIT Bombay. Today I wish to talk about the idea of transformation with reference to climate change and uncertainty. Many of you may be aware that Mumbai frequently figures among the top 5 most vulnerable cities to climate change. And we are already seeing increasing effects of climate change on Mumbai in terms of cyclones, storm surge, sea level rise, and other hazards. There is extreme precipitation also, which is affecting a large section of the population and has severe impacts on the economy. While the GDP contribution of the city is being affected, there are also marginalized communities such as the fisher folk who are also being affected by climate change. We have come to believe that piecemeal solutions, adaptation, risk reduction, these are not going to work as Mumbai is increasingly exposed to different kinds of climate hazards. And therefore, in order to arrive at a holistic set of recommendations to address problems of climate change and uncertainty, we are working on what is called as the transformative pathway, a term that was introduced by the IPCC in the Assessment Report 5 in 2014. So here we are suggesting that more systemic or holistic kind of change is required, cutting across different spheres such as governance, solid waste management, water management, early warning systems, the use of technology, a clear mapping of livelihoods and impacts. And so we thought that we would start on a small scale, identifying a specific set of problems. So the current project that I am going to talk about is called the Tapestry project, where we are looking at similar issues of how resource-dependent communities are severely affected by uncertainties related to climate change, which are in turn affecting their lives, livelihoods, income, health, education, and so on. So using a range of innovative techniques which includes qualitative research but also visual techniques like photo voice, we are also trying to understand children's perspectives on climate change by making them do paintings related to their own experiences of climate change impacts. And so in Bombay, essentially we are looking at 3 different kinds of initiatives. So this is not like a traditional academic research project. This is more of an action research project where we are trying to produce knowledge of the impacts of climate change in association with local communities. We identify hybrid alliances or try to put together hybrid alliances across government, private sector, NGOs, civil society and local communities as well as academics, and come up with certain alternative pathways to transformation which are more sustainable but also more equitable and just. And so the 3 issues that we are looking at, one is the role of mangroves in mitigating floods, and Mumbai has been carrying out very interesting experiments where the government of Maharashtra set up a mangrove cell which is tasked with conserving mangroves, preventing its destruction and enhancing the role of mangroves for flood risk mitigation but also to prevent the impacts of storm surge, cyclones, sea level rise and so on. The second case that we are looking at is about the chronic flooding that many different hotspots in Mumbai experience, and we have selected one site along the Dahisar river towards the north of Bombay. And here we are again looking at a hybrid alliance consisting of the local municipal ward officials, residents associations, NGOs working together with academics to better understand and map flood risks, and then try to find out what is it that exacerbates or mitigates the risk of flooding, and then put in place strategies at the local level to reduce the risk of flooding or help local citizens to adapt to flooding. And we believe that these kind of cases which we are trying to understand and put into practice at a local level can be scaled up for transformation at the city level, at the regional level, or even at the national level. The third case that we are dealing with is in Versova Kolivada, and these villages provide a significant source of livelihood as well as a source of food security, but also because of the ecosystems that these Kolivadas depend on, the wetlands and the mangroves and so on, the beaches, they also provide services in terms of mitigating risks from sea level rise, from coastal inundation, from storm surge, and from flooding whenever there is extreme rainfall event in the city. Therefore, we believe that while their own contribution to the overall GDP of the country may not be high, their contribution to income and food security is very high. But even more importantly, the services they provide in terms of flood risk mitigation means that they save a huge amount of money for the city's economy by preventing floods. And therefore, we are working with these communities to understand how best we can firstly mitigate the risks of climate change for them. Secondly, we are trying to understand how urban development, infrastructure projects, pollution from the city's solid waste management dumping grounds, how these are affecting the fishing village, polluting the creek, polluting the beach, polluting the coastal waters. So we are trying to use different kinds of strategies and technologies to clear up this pollution. For example, by putting in place nets along the creek to capture the plastic and then recycling the plastic to make nets or to make small islands on which plants can be grown. While the short-term solutions may lead to adaptation, that is, protect us from risks, but they may not work in the long term, because in the long term, we will not only need to mitigate risk, we will also need to arrest the processes which create risk in the first place. That the idea of transformation is not just to become resilient or cope with a risk, but how to reduce the possibility or potential for risk in the long term. Addressing multiple problems, livelihoods, income and food security, flood risk mitigation, pollution, all of these are being supplemented by developing an alternative master plan for that particular site. So what we realized was that in the existing master plan for the city, the Kolivada and its uses and its benefits are not well realized. So by coming up with this alternative master plan, which is stakeholder driven, which comes from below in consultation with people, we again hope to provide a set of recommendations, a set of alternative visions for the city, which if incorporated at the city or the regional level can help us to transform in a more sustainable way to address the various kinds of risks that we face from climate change.